The bell above the gun shop door rang once, sharp and small, like a warning nobody bothered to hear. Every head turned for half a second, then turned away again, dismissing her as easily as they dismissed the sound. She felt it immediately, the way the room tightened, the way curiosity curdled into judgment. If you've ever been measured by strangers in a single glance, you know the feeling. It crawls up your spine and whispers that you don't belong here. What none of them knew, what they couldn't have known, was that the next 10 minutes would rewrite every assumption they'd ever made. Her name was Lena Hart, and she didn't look like the kind of person the men in that shop respected. Mid-30s, dark hair pulled into a practical knot. Jeans worn soft at the knees, a jacket that had seen better years. No loud confidence, no swagger. She carried herself quietly, like someone used to being overlooked. And in a place like Ridgeway Arms, quiet read as weak. The walls were crowded with rifles and shotguns, polished wood and cold metal gleaming under fluorescent lights. A TV murmured sports highlights in the corner. 3 men leaned against the counter, coffee cups in hand, laughing too loud. The clerk, a thick-armed man with a trimmed beard and a faded flag patch on his cap, glanced at her and smirked before she even spoke. "Can I help you?" he asked, already sounding like he hoped the answer was no. "Yes," Lena said. Her voice was calm, steady. "I'm looking for A.300 Win Mag. Bolt action, preferably with a composite stock." The laughter didn't stop, it grew. One of the men at the counter snorted. Another shook his head like he'd just heard a good joke. The clerk raised his eyebrows, slow and exaggerated. A.300, he repeated. "You sure you don't mean something lighter, sweetheart? Maybe A.22. Easier on the shoulder." Lena felt the familiar heat rise in her chest. Not anger exactly, something older, tired. She had heard this tone before, in classrooms, briefing rooms, hospital corridors. The sound of people deciding who you are before you get to speak. "I'm sure," she said. One of the men leaned closer, elbows on the counter. "What the hell do you know about a rifle like that?" There it was. The question wasn't curious. It wasn't even hostile. It was dismissive, final, as if her answer couldn't possibly matter. Lena opened her mouth, then closed it again. For a moment, she considered explaining. She could talk about ballistics, about recoil management, about long-range accuracy in high-wind environments. She could mention distances measured not in yards but in heartbeats. She could tell them about nights when the ground felt like ice and the sky felt too close. But she didn't, because explaining had never been the point. "Enough," the clerk said, waving a hand. "Look, we don't usually recommend those to beginners. Liability and all that. Maybe try the big box store down the road." The words landed like a shove. Beginner, liability, go somewhere else. For a second, the shop felt very quiet inside her head. She nodded once, slowly, turned toward the door. The bell rang again as she stepped out, the sound swallowed by fresh laughter behind her. Outside, the air was cold and clean. Lena stood on the sidewalk, hands in her pockets, staring at her reflection in the glass. She looked smaller than she felt. Or maybe she felt bigger than she looked. Either way, the gap between those two things had followed her whole life. Behind her, engines rumbled. 7 of them, black SUVs rolled into the parking lot one after another, deliberate and controlled. Doors opened almost in unison. Boots hit pavement. The sound carried weight. Heads turned. Conversations died. 7 men walked toward the entrance of Ridgeway Arms, moving with a quiet, practiced confidence that didn't need to announce itself. No patches, no bragging, just posture, presence, and eyes that missed nothing. Lena didn't turn around right away. She didn't have to. She recognized the rhythm of their steps. Chapter 2. The bell rang again, but this time it sounded different. Louder, heavier, like the beginning of something that couldn't be laughed off. The shop fell silent as the 7 men entered. Even the TV seemed to lower its voice. The clerk straightened instinctively, hands moving to the counter as if alignment alone could earn respect. The men at the counter stepped back without realizing they were doing it. The one in front scanned the room once, quick and precise. Then his eyes found Lena, still standing just outside the door, framed by glass and winter light. "Ma'am," he said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "You coming in, or you want us to bring the place to you?" Every head snapped toward her. Lena turned slowly and stepped back inside. The bell rang. Again, she walked past the frozen faces, past the counter, and stopped beside the man who'd spoken. He smiled at her, not wide, not playful. Respectful, familiar. "They giving you trouble?" he asked. The clerk swallowed. Now hold on. Lena raised a hand. The man stopped talking instantly. They told me I didn't know enough to buy a rifle, she said quietly. The 7 men exchanged glances. Not angry ones. Something colder. Something settled. The leader turned back to the clerk. She knows more about firearms than anyone in this room, he said. Including you. A laugh tried to escape one of the customers and died halfway out. The clerk's face reddened. And you are? The man didn't answer right away. He reached into his jacket, pulled out a small, worn challenge coin, and set it gently on the counter. The sound it made wasn't loud, but it echoed. The room understood before the words did. She trained us, another man said. Marksmanship. Stress shooting. Decision-making when it actually matters. A third added, saved my life once. Twice, maybe. Lena felt her throat tighten despite herself. The leader looked back at the clerk. So if she asks for a .300 Win Mag, you don't question her. You ask which manufacturer. And you say thank you. Silence stretched, thick and humbling. Yes, sir, the clerk said. Lena stepped forward. She met the clerk's eyes, not with triumph, not with anger, but with something far more unsettling. Expectation. I'd like to see what you have in stock, she said. They brought out 3 rifles. She checked each one methodically. Action, weight, balance. She asked precise questions. The clerk answered carefully now, respectfully, as if each word were being graded. The men at the counter watched, their earlier confidence gone. One of them shifted uncomfortably. When Lena finally chose a rifle, the leader nodded. Good pick, he said softly. She smiled, just a little. As the paperwork finished, one of the customers cleared his throat. Ma'am, he said, not meeting her eyes. I didn't mean, earlier. I just. Lena turned to him. I know, she said. You didn't mean anything by it. That's usually the problem. The words landed harder than anger ever could. Outside, the sun dipped lower, painting the parking lot gold. The 7 men waited as Lena stepped out, rifle case in hand. Thanks for the backup, she said. The leader shrugged. You never needed it. But sometimes people only listen when the right voices speak. Lena watched the shop through the glass. The clerk was still standing where she'd left him, staring at the coin on the counter like it might burn. I used to think proving myself was the goal, she said. Turns out, just existing is enough. The rest is their lesson. To learn. The men nodded. Engines started. Doors closed. As the SUVs pulled away, Lena stood alone again, but not small. Never small. Because the truth is this. The world will always ask, what the hell do you know?